Hello everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to the final session of National University Week. What a week it has been. It's been amazing and incredible, and so many of you have joined and asked questions, and hopefully we've put lots of questions and potential nerves and anxieties to bed a little bit this week. And I think that this session is perfect for us to end on, really. This final session of the week is being held by Universities UK, and the panel here today are here to talk to you about support with mental health at university. So this session is designed to explore the support available to protect students' mental health and wellbeing as they move from sixth form or college to university. As a panel, as a discussion within the Q&As, we'll be discussing some of the support services that are available to students and the ways in which universities can support students as they make that transition that we've just mentioned. Hello, here's the panel. I'll let everybody do their own introduction shortly, but before I hand over, I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping for you. The chat box is on the right hand side of your screen. Please ask any questions in the chat box as the panel discuss the conversation piece, because we'll use it to fuel and charge some of the discussions. The session is being recorded. It will be emailed to you as a registrant and attendee, and it will also be available on demand on the National University Week website. So it's very much a resource that you can come back to. I will be loitering around in the background. It's not very often that you get to say that in a positive way. And we'll hand over to the panel. And yes, take it away, guys.
Thanks, Heather. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. And as Heather mentioned, we'll be exploring some of the support that's available to students to support their kind of positive mental health and well-being as they transition to university, and we'll be looking at some of the support services that are available and the ways in which universities can better support students during this transition period. So just as an introduction, my name is Miles Hanlon. I'm a policy researcher at Universities UK, and Universities UK is the voice of 140 universities across the country. So I work in the policy group there on issues relating to social mobility and improving access to higher education, but also supporting our work on mental health, which is a really important piece of work. I'll be chairing the session this afternoon, and it's great to see so many of you here today. I'm delighted to be joined by our speakers this afternoon, Dr. Dominique Thompson, Dr. Sammy Lee, and Augusta Nagiofo. So just to briefly introduce them, Dominique is an award-winning GP, young people's mental health expert, TEDx speaker, author, and educator with 2 decades of clinical experience. She's author of the Student Wellbeing series and co-author of How to Grow a Grown-Up. In 2021, Dom was delighted to be shortlisted alongside academic colleagues from the University of Nottingham for a Times Higher Education Award, Hungry for Words, Men Get Eating Disorders Too. Dom is a clinical advisor for NICE and Student Minds, so welcome, Dom. It's lovely to have you here. We're also joined by Sammy, who is the advisor to the University of Birmingham on equality, diversity and inclusion for 39,000 students on the university's UK and overseas campuses. Sammy's remit spans the whole student life cycle, working in partnerships with academics, professional services and students to embed inclusive practice from across the higher education to campus experience, inclusive education, EDI literacy, graduate outcomes, and pipelines into academia. Sammy is an elected executive member of AMOSHI, which is a professional membership association for leaders of student services in UK higher education. So Sammy, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. And we're also joined by Augusta, who is an advocate for equality, diversity and inclusion and mental health, spearheading multiple campaigns to create a more inclusive environment for students at the University of the West of England in Bristol. So Augusta is the past president and vice president community and welfare at the Students' Union at UWE, which represents over 30,000 students and Augusta was involved in championing the student voice at all levels of the university, as a member of the university's Board of Governors and chair of the SU Board of Trustees. As president, she worked collaboratively with the university's directorate team and senior members of the university on student-focused partnership projects. And in her current role as a student advice team leader and faculty coordinator for engineering and technology within student and academic services, Augusta supports the planning and management of the student advice service to ensure all students are supported throughout their time at UE Bristol. So welcome colleagues, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We will be hearing from speakers for the first 30 minutes or so. So after that time, I'm happy to take questions and ask our panel about some of the questions that you have. So please do have a think about what you'd like to ask our panel members throughout their presentations. It would be great to have as many questions as possible. So please do add these to the chat as we go through. So I think that's enough from me. And without further ado, I will hand over to Dom first to give your reflections on student mental health and starting university.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping that's all working. So thank you. It's really great to be able to speak to people before they head off to university, because it is, you know, really quite a challenging time sometimes, that transition. I mean, transition means change, and change is, you know, stressful and a bit anxiety inducing, and that's completely normal. So I think, you know, what I'd like to focus on is some of the things you can do to try and make that change as smooth as possible, allowing for the fact that there will be, you know, unexpected things that happen. I guess for me, the other thing to do if you are feeling a bit nervous is to try and reframe it a little bit as excitement if you can. It isn't always easy, but it is one way to try and think, okay, I'm feeling rather excited about going off to university rather than worried or anxious. It'll just shift a little bit how you feel about it. So when you head off to uni, there's an awful lot happening at the beginning, and those first weeks are jam-packed, and there's sort of all sorts of information coming at you. And I think for me, there's something about pacing yourself. It's really important to try not to feel the pressure to have to do everything. However, it is important to do some things, new things, try stuff, not be afraid to try the new things, because you'll arrive and there might be a sort of welcome week set up, and you might go to a sort of freshers fair type of event, and you'll either probably fall into the category of wanting to sort of sign up for everything, or be so overwhelmed that you just arrive, take one look around and leave again. And the important thing is to try and remind yourself those are quite common reactions, and to go somewhere in the middle. So I always suggest, and obviously it's up to you, but if you go to something like the Welcome Fair, maybe just sign up for a couple of things. And those couple of things, I recommend that you go for one that you really feel quite comfortable with. You know you're going to be okay with it. It's going to make you feel confident, like you know what you're doing. But maybe just try one thing that's a little bit more out there, a little bit different. Might be ultimate frisbee, might be some sort of cake baking or cheese tasting. I mean, there's so many things out there. But the key thing is to try something that's maybe not in your usual comfort zone, as a way of maybe meeting some new and interesting and different people that you wouldn't necessarily always meet. So I think that leads me on to the other big thing, which is really important, which is meeting new people. You will be meeting a lot of people. You might feel the pressure that they've got to be your best friends for the rest of your life. They possibly won't be. I mean, they might be, but they possibly won't be. They'll just be good friends, people that you've met or people that you may never see again. But the key is that you try and meet and come into contact with and interact with just lots of different people at a pace that you're happy with, that makes you feel comfortable. But that gives you a good opportunity to build a little social network around you, which will support you through those ups and downs, so that you don't feel on your own too much or isolated. And there'll be loads of opportunities to connect with people. And so you don't have to be super extrovert or anything like that. You can just, as I said, go to some of the groups and clubs and stuff that are set up to meet people, but slowly connect people, because that social network is a really crucial part of settling in and, having places to go if you do first want to chat to anyone about how you're feeling. And that leads me to my next point, which is about help and support. Universities have absolutely loads of people out there who choose to work in a university setting because they love working with students, like I did as a GP on campus. It is so reassuring to know that there are counselling services, wellbeing advisors, people in accommodation blocks, all of them there to support you. Even, if you're looking around your academic department, many of the personal tutors have had training in support and knowing where to signpost you. So wherever you turn, there should be someone to help you, support you, point you in the right direction. The big message here is you are not on your own. Help is out there, and you just can explore in your own new campus or university what is available. So maybe in that first week, in between some of the sort of meeting people events, you could go along and see where the wellbeing services are. You might go along and register with a GP. I'm a big fan of that one. Just take that week to settle yourself in, get your bearings, and find out where those services are, because you might never need them, which would be great. But if you do need them, which loads of people do, you know where they are, you feel familiar with them. So I guess I'm not going to talk for loads of time. I think it's really important to pace yourself, make connections with people. Just start to get to know a few people. Humans need other humans. We're social creatures, even the most shy of us. And we need other people we can connect with. And then orientate yourself around where the support is, where the wellbeing teams are, where the GP practice is. Often there's one on campus. Loads of universities have got one on campus. So just to sort of familiarize yourself with all of that, and try not to feel, that overwhelmed and you've got to be having the best time of your life the whole time, because that just isn't normal or humanly possible to be having the best time of your life all the time. So just pace yourself and go easy. And I think what I'll do is I'll stop there, and then I'm really happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Dom. That was really good advice, I think, and I appreciate your comments around pacing yourself and kind of managing those expectations of having to move away to university and get stuck into everything and make lifelong friends on the first day. I think it's so realistic for all of those things to happen over time. If you're at university for 3 or 4 years, you might make friends in your last year who you then continue to be friends with, or you join your favorite society in your second year, and kind of pacing yourself is a really, really good piece of advice there, so thank you. I think before we take questions, I'll just go to Sammy next for your reflections, please.
Yes, hello everyone. So my background, I have been a lecturer at the university and now work in student services, which will provide a bit more information about what we mean by student service here. Just follow with my fellow speakers about it. Yes, going to university is a big change, and change means differences, and it could be feeling a bit challenging, but also exciting, that actually the differences will bring you with very different new perspectives, ways of handling things and seeing things that perhaps you never experienced at a previous education before. It's just all this actually build a very unique university experience. So help yourself to develop a thinking that prepared to see differences and actually see it that way. Then you open yourself up to something that actually you never encountered before. And there will be surprises, and it's about like how you manage those surprises in a positive way. So university is a rather big environment, because unlike the school that we have been to before, average in a university, a small one, we're talking about several thousand students. A bigger university, we're talking about almost 40,000, 50,000, or even more. It's just a gigantic shared community. So you may feel a bit oh, okay, how do I know? You're not there. You don't have to force yourself to meet all 50,000 of people. But what you need to think about is find your mates and friends. With that quantity of students on top of the staff, that what it means that you will always find somebody you can buddy up with. You will always find people who share similar life experience, background, circumstances, be it your ethnic minority, LGBT plus, or with a disability condition or all different background. There will always be people that you can relate to, develop your sense of belonging, which is actually quite assuring. You just need to find your buddies within that group of people. And there are many ways to do it, be it a welcome activities, student association, or all different channels. So it's about just finding your mix and take your time. You don't have to make the forever best friend within the first week at the university. You have a couple of years to develop your relationship at different time. And there will even be new students next year after you. So there will new faces to create new relationship with friends and so on. With this amount of students, there's always a very big number team of staff to support and work with you. And some of them are what we usually call within the umbrella terminology of student services. Student services could structure differently across different universities. Some may include library within this division, some may include career support, disability support, student well-being, mental health, student equalities, and a range of different services. And the purpose of these services is to support you, not just about your academic developments in terms of your coursework, your education, but wider and a kind of a safety net to support you a range of things, your academically, but also your social life, your well-being, and your university experience. Is we're talking about like a life cycle about how we support you experience this 3 years or plus, your educations, and how do we support you to transform you as a transition into university, and then support you into your future development, be it you want to do further degree studies or you go into the workplace environment. So many of these staff are actually equipped to support you. I would not be surprised the university you're going to, many of them would have received, for example, mental health first aid training to support you. Don't really think about that if mental health and support and well-being, you only need to go to the mental health and well-being department if there's a dedicated team within university. There are actually many staff who are equipped to deal with a lot of supporting students day in, day out, because this is the day job working with students and supporting your experience and helping you discover the campus. So it could be accommodation staff, it could be your lecturer, personal tutor, even security staff, chaplains, even cleaning staff, and a lot of different colleagues who will be able to speak with you and have a pause in a moment. And of course, there are different students involved in the within the campus environment. What is important is finding your space, finding the people that you relate to talk to. What corners at university that can bring you joy and calm? You want to go get a coffee, or you like particular drinks? Discover the campus to find things that you actually like. It's very important to find spaces and environment that, oh, yeah, and when I'm in a stressed situation, this is the space that I want to take a break, have a pause, enjoy myself, watch a cloud, look at the trees and things. They're always somewhere on campus you can pick as your favorite spot. Discover those corners, but also find your own channels as well. The university will perhaps provide in-person mental health support. There will also perhaps be support via apps, phone line, or sometimes even 24 chat services as well. So at different means at different time. Find those information. You may not immediately need those sort of support and help information, but it's actually quite comforting to know they are available. And you might need it someday, you might not need it at the whole course of your university life. But knowing this information, when you know your fellow students and classmates, might be you can pass on this information as well. And that's you be active bystander to support each other's mental health. So this is very important as a shared community. I know that there are lots of questions about exam stress, so perhaps I will talk about it later in the Q&A. I can share my background as a lecturer about this area in particular later on.
Thank you, Sammy. That was a really fascinating insight, and I again appreciated your comments about kind of the amount of staff that are available to support students. You know, it's not, you don't just have to go to mental health and wellbeing support services for support with mental health. You know, there's so many different types of staff within a university that can help. I remember at university, personal tutors were always really great with dealing with issues of stress or kind of anxieties around studies, but also that kind of wider kind of social element. If you've got worries or any kind of anxieties there, personal tutors are a great resource to have too. So thank you for that. Augusta, I'll come to you next.
Thank you, Miles. So at this point, I feel like Sammy and Dom have covered, a good round of what university is like. So I think I'll come from a different angle, if that's okay. Coming into the University of the West of England, I can't help but think about my experience during the first year. I had missed freshers. I had missed all the student union activities and all the exciting things that were happening in that space. And there was that fear and anxiety of, I've missed out. I've missed the opportunity to make friends. I've missed the opportunity to connect with other people, to understand, the new university environment, the new city. So I had put myself to a corner and wallowed in that, in that pain of, okay, wow, okay, what do I do next? But that was not the end. That was not it was not the end, because there were so many other opportunities for me to engage, and all I needed to do at that time was speak to someone. And one of the exciting things about coming to university is there's always that one person who you can go to, speak to about your situation, and find a resolution. And thinking about, just talking about the student support services that are available, like Sammy and Dom highlighted, there are quite a number of them. It's not just the Wellbeing. We have the student advice team, we have the Wellbeing team, we have the initial response team, who would typically respond to serious concerns cases that come up on campus. And we have, partner organizations like the CUT students, the 24/7 crisis text line, all of the services available to students. What universities do is make sure that we shape the experience of our students around what we do. And so far, talking about my experience, having been a student and now working in the university, I can see things from a 360 point of view. So I think I would just highlight the student union part just a little bit. There are lots of sports activities. There are lots of sports clubs, societies that one can engage with. What I've found with my experience is when students come in and unfortunately may not find what they're looking for, there's that feeling of, okay, I'm just going to stay on my own. But the good part to it is, if there isn't what you're looking for, you can set up your own. And I think Dom mentioned this. We have like the Cheese and Wine Society. So whatever is of interest to you, it might sound crazy, but you would be surprised the number of like-minded students like you who would happily want to join your club, to partake in whatever activities that you decide to host during the year. The other thing I would want to make mention of is managing your finances. I think money is a huge aspect of student life, and let's be frank with one another. Like, you wanna explore the city, you wanna go out with your friends, you wanna eat takeout and not have to cook. There's just so many exciting things that you want to do with your money, but going back to what Dom and Sammy said, it's important to to pace yourself. And with having the money service available at different institutions and not just UWI Bristol, what that helps students with is budgeting and saving. It comes in hand, especially when you go through the season of assessment where you're not able to go out as much and you need that fund to be able to do your weekly shopping or, you know, buy things online, whatever the case is. The other thing that I would want to highlight is I know I was excited about leaving home because my elder siblings had done that, and I felt that they were being treated better than my they were being treated by my parents. Um, so I was looking forward to leaving, and I didn't realize that homesickness and feeling that bit of loneliness was a huge thing. So think about your friends and family that you're going to be leaving behind per se, and think about how you would want to stay in touch with them, connect with them. Think about them as your support system, people who have known you for the longest time, who probably know your vulnerabilities, and use them as that resource to talk to them about the challenges that you may face at university. I did find, you know, at different points I needed someone to talk to, and they were always able to, you know, give that word of advice on, you know, how I could approach a situation. For those who may be wondering, you know, how do I navigate, you know, my academics? I want to get a first, I want to get a 2-1, or first year isn't important. Lots of students have different perspective depending on what program that you're going to be joining. But what's important to know is at whatever level that you are, there are members of staff available to support you within library services, with referencing, with preparing for your first exam, preparing for your first assessment. We also have something called, Sammy mentioned this, the buddying system. At the University of the West of England, we call it the peer assisted learning. And this is where we have second year students who have been through similar experiences, who have been through the same program as you are currently on, who would be able to guide you week on week. And I find that, you know, really useful because having that peer support goes a long way. The last thing I wanted to say, if we have any parents in the room, because I know we're expecting a few today, is to understand the journey that your children are about to embark on. And it's an exciting one, but one that also comes with its own challenges. And being able to understand your child, support them, listen to them, and be that source of encouragement will go a long way to that point of graduation where lots of students then throw their hats. So I think I would end with saying, coming to university is exciting. The prep, thinking ahead, there might be a lot of worry, concerns about what it's going to be like, if I'm going to find friends, if I'm going to be able to adapt. Would I like my program? Can I change my program? All that's important to know is that there are members of staff who can help you throughout that journey, and you're not alone. And be kind to yourself. I think that's what I would end with. We put so much pressure on ourselves as human beings, and university is not the end, it's only the beginning of your journey. So be kind to yourself, recognize the achievements, that the small wins that you have, and we all will be here cheering you on. Thank you.
Thanks, Augusta. What a really positive way to end. And I think that idea of being kind to ourselves is one that everyone should listen to. I also really enjoyed hearing about the peer assisted learning and the kind of that student guide who can support you throughout. I think that's a really great way of kind of making some of the issues you might face, or the challenges and the barriers when you start university, just that little bit easier, and someone perhaps having gone through that can offer some support as to how you might overcome that. So that's always very reassuring. So thank you for those very interesting remarks. would anyone from the panel just like to comment on what one another has said, or would you like to go straight into questions, because we've got quite a few in the chat already? Any burning
Happy
questions?
to go with questions. Yeah.
Let's do it. Okay, so we do have a question about whether, if a student was to access mental health support, would the university be notified, or would it be kept confidential? Dom, perhaps I could come to you on that one first.
Yes, absolutely. So counselling services, or of course GP and NHS services, are all confidential. So unless you specifically ask for the information to be shared, or you want to liaise, obviously sharing the information between services, you can, for example, get a letter from the counselling services and have that sent to your department and the GPs as well. You are looked after in a confidential manner, and you will be consulted with on any, remote possibility that these things might need to be discussed with other people. So you will be part of that discussion.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to add to that point as well. In particular, sometimes students with professional body qualification, for example, medical training, or nurses or teachers, sometimes they worry about, without access services, would that information to share to the professional body, would it impact my qualification? No, it is all private information. You would know where your personal details travel. There's a GDPR with very strict, high standard protection in the UK, so you can trust who you talk to, and you will always know where your information is shared, and you will always provide your consent if anybody is doing anything in terms of sharing.
Yeah, I think just on top of that, to say that even within student services, so I could get a call about a student of concern, but I can't get any more information about that. So within student services at the University of the West of England, there is an information sharing across services. So you can be rest assured that your information would be held confidential. And for students who may access the Student Advice Center at their student unions, is to know that they offer free confidential advice as well. And with the student union, this are independent from the university, so there wouldn't be cross-sharing between organizations.
Thank you all. Yeah, really useful comments there. We've got another question. Are student mental health services the same across all universities, or are some better than others? So perhaps, Augusta, I could start with you.
I was going to say Dom.
Okay.
I would say they're different. They're different in the way we operate, and obviously different members of staff. I wouldn't say one is better than the other, because what we do here as members of staff is make sure that we are supporting students in different ways. We're all working towards something called a personalized student journey. So our approach with one student would differ to another student. So no one is better than the other. We are all working really hard to support all the students that come through to us.
Dom, did you have anything to add?
Augusta will make a great politician. It's very diplomatic. No, she's absolutely right, actually. It's because the universities tailor their services to their particular student demographic. So they will know, if they've got lots of commuter students, they'll maybe open their hours at different times. Or if they've got a really big campus and everyone's very close together, they might have a GP practice right there in the middle of it. So it's not about being better. It's probably worth exploring if you have specific concerns or needs and you want to know a bit more about it with current students and the university itself, what they offer and does it meet your requirements. But there is a really big move across the whole sector to improve the support that's offered, and it comes through at lots of different levels. So, for example, autistic students at many universities are now offered a pre-arrival time, so they arrive before it gets really busy, or perhaps even a couple of days before, or they might be offered a quiet hour within the freshers' fair. Things are done that are at a specific and tailored level that were never done 10, 15 years ago. So the whole sector has upped its game, and really it's about finding out what's right for you and asking current students.
Thanks, Dom. Sammy, did you have anything to add on that point?
Yeah, so universities use very different models. Some of them looking into supporting you to build a resilient, that sort of a preventive measure. Some invest a lot in terms of the very first on the day initial first-hand support. Some will be looking into in terms of the provision for more mental health professional appointment-based support. So they are all different, and some of them provide 24-hour services. It's really about discovering what works for you. Something that's great for another student doesn't mean it is the best way to support your needs. You are all unique individual. It's really about how you communicate with your university and finding how you assess different options of services in a combination that you feel, okay, that's something that it is great for my needs and at that moment of time as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Sammy. Just following on from I suppose the first question, if a student kind of falls behind with work or you know poor mental health or well-being then impacts a student's study, is there flexibility available for the student, and kind of what support services are available for students in that situation? Who would like to take this one?
I could go first. At UWI Bristol, we know that life may happen to a student, and when things happen, that may affect how a student engages with their program. And it's entirely up to a student to make a decision about what they would like to do. But one of the things that we've introduced this year is a 3-day grace period. And what that means is when a student has an assessment due on a Friday, they still have that leeway to submit the next day or 3 days after. And for students who may have issues with IT or something at home, they still have that opportunity to submit. The other option is an extension. So we have a 7-day extension, and we also have reasonable adjustments in place for students who are known to the university who have long-term disabilities. Interestingly, another thing that we look at is if our processes and our regulations disable a student, and we're able to offer adjustments in place to ensure that students are still able to submit or engage. There are other students who resit, and I don't think resit is such a bad thing as many years ago, because now most universities I'm aware of are offering uncapped receipt. So previously a student would have that 40% cap, but right now you're still able to attempt the assessment and still get your 100% mark and retaking the year as well, because we have students who may unfortunately have health conditions that may mean they have to step back and suspend their studies, but still having that opportunity to retake the module or the year always helps.
Thanks, Augusta. Sammy, did you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I think there's as Augusta mentioned, that there's a range of different mitigation that university prepare, because what we know by our experience is there are tens of thousands of students every year. All sort of life circumstances happen, so we have a collection of different ways to support you. What would be very helpful is when you start your university, take a short moment to have a little bit basic understanding about the range of different mitigations for information, so that if when things happen in life, then you need to look into some different ways to readjust in terms of your exam commitments and other things balance in life, then you know what sort of option that you have, and you always have access to personal tutor and the staff or the module leader or program leader to talk to them. Okay, I know a bit there are different options like this. Can you tell me a bit more in my circumstances? So that sort of basic information will give you kind of quite a reassure and help you to reduce the level of stress, because you know what is on offer.
Thanks, Sammy. Yeah, really good advice there. Dom, any kind of final reflections?
Yes, just to say, don't ignore it if things are going wrong, and then it becomes more tricky to sort out. I mean, it is sortable, and universities will always try to be flexible. But if you can see that things are going a bit wonky, just talk to someone about it. And as Sammy said, as Augusta said, just say, what are my options here? What do I need to do? Who do I need to speak to? Because the answer will be that there are options. The best thing is just to not let it drift.
Yeah, really good advice. And I think the takeaway is that universities want to support you. It's not that they would ever, necessarily turn around intentionally and say, there's nothing we can do. Their objective is there to support you through your kind of higher education university experience. So thank you guys for that. Augusta, maybe I could pose this one to you specifically, as you talked about kind of peer student support. Someone's asked a question about whether there are opportunities to actually volunteer to support other students. So kind of how would that work in your institutional context? And Sammy and Dom, I'm happy to kind of hear your thoughts on this as well.
So we have something which sits under the Students' Union called the Student Rep System, being a student representative within your course. And this usually comes up a couple of weeks after the start of the session, and students can speak to either their course leaders, their program leaders, to make mention of the fact that they would like to represent their course. So that's one way of representing, the student voice within your cohort. Another way is by becoming a student ambassador. And what that does is, with all the different events and activities happening across the university, you are that one person that students can come to find out a bit more, depending on what they would like to know. Within the peer assisted learning scheme, there's something called the Resilient You. And what that means, I think Sammy made mention of this just a little bit, helping students build their confidence and their resilience throughout their time at university. And if you're someone who's able to come into a space and, just take over, get the knowledge about what you need to do within that space, you can obviously volunteer to say, I would like to step up and be that person that other students can come to about whatever it is. So there are different ways, depending on the university that you go to. The names may be different, but I think it's just knowing that you can speak to a member of staff about what your intentions are, what you're interested in, and they would be able to point you in the right direction as to what's available within that environment.
Thanks, Augusta. Sammy, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, so I would definitely encourage you and all of you to consider in terms of how you want to get involved in university life. There are many opportunities to become a student leader, ambassador, different ways and things. One example is within my team at the University of Birmingham. We hire 10 students within my team. Those are in particular even as paid position. We provide training. Let's say one of the training that we are now arranging in early October is a communication coach, to work with our student ambassador for 2 days to support them to do public speaking, how to influence others, and how to manage difficult conversation. All these actual skills that you can learn as a student leader and volunteer will build up your further knowledge and skills into your future, your careers and employability, and your personal growth as well. You can gain a lot of this sort of skill beyond your academic learning as well. So they would really tremendously enrich your student experience, and it's something that absolutely you should consider to do.
Thanks, Sammy. Dom, any reflections?
Yeah, just briefly, I suppose that it kind of answers some of the questions that I saw come up earlier about meeting people and how to meet people if you're a bit shy and all of those. My answer is almost always volunteering. It's a win-win. You feel good because you're doing something, but you're also doing something for somebody else, and then they feel good. And, I guess it's a win-win-win because you also meet new people who are often like-minded, thoughtful, considerate people as well. And then just sort of separate to that, but associated, is the concept of peer support, peer volunteering. Well, that is very much a thing. So yes, absolutely. In universities, there will be all sorts of opportunities to be a peer supporter, a peer volunteer, and that can be through the Students' Union and all the activities they do. It might be through charities like Student Minds, for example, who run peer support. They run courses, all sorts of things like look after your mate. You know, there's a whole variety of different ways to support each other through those. It might be in the accommodation. You might sort of be able to help support peers through that. So I think the thing to do is, once you've arrived and you've settled in a bit and you've got the hang of it, maybe look around and see if there's any way that you might volunteer doing anything. And that could be, you know, there are a whole host of different ways, whether it's working in a food bank or teaching little kids to read. You know, I mean, there's a whole variety of things there. And then if you're specifically interested in helping other students, look around, ask around through the Students' Union and so on. But volunteering is probably one of my favourite things.
I really agree with that. And at the university that I went to, and I'm aware that this happens at others as well, in our accommodation services, they had a specific student who was kind of allocated to your accommodation building, and they would just go around every single flat on a Wednesday evening and have a 2-minute conversation with you to ask if you were okay. And it was almost like a wellbeing check-in by another student who just volunteered for the university, but by the end of the year you'd become friends with that person, and then it was just that kind of peer support network, and that was a voluntary role for that for the person who did go around the accommodation. So definitely agree with that point about volunteering. Slightly similar question. Do you have any advice on how to help a friend that you think might need some support whilst at university? Don't know who would like to take this one first. Dom? Yeah.
Of course, yes, happy to help with that. I mean, that would happen a lot to me as a GP. I would see someone in my consulting room, actually, and they'd often say, oh, I'm a bit worried about my friend or my flatmate. And, you know, that's the lovely thing about students. They're always looking out for each other. And, you know, generally speaking, it's a community feel. So if you're concerned about someone, the first thing actually is just to sort of check in with them directly, and it's fine to sort of ask how people are, listen to them, you know, believe them if they say they've been going through a difficult time, but it sounds a little bit odd or something. Just believe them where they are, because that's their experience at the moment. And then maybe say something like, you know, it does sound really difficult, but let's see what we can find in terms of support, and let's see what's out there. So you're not fixing it for them. You don't need to fix it for them, but you can help them to find the support they need if they feel ready to do so. So assuming they're happy to find some support, then it's probably worth checking in with the various wellbeing services. And as we've heard, every university is slightly different, but there might be a wellbeing advisor in your faculty. There might be someone in your accommodation. Go there first, perhaps with them, so you're alongside them. If it's a medical thing, then you can help them in terms of booking an appointment and coming and sitting in the waiting room when they go in, you know. So there are ways to support people. There is a slight issue around if your friend is in difficulty but they don't want help. That gets a little more complex, but don't struggle on it yourself, okay? Then talk to the professionals around you, saying this is the situation. They will then advise you depending on that situation.
Thanks, Dom. Augusta, did you have any reflections?
I think just on top of that, I think this was mentioned earlier, being aware of the different supports that is available within your university and around your city. If something happens off campus and it's time critical, sometimes we may absorb information that would not be useful for us, but it might be handy for someone else. So just being aware of what's within your space. If you're going out on a night out, just knowing who to call if something does happen. I think that goes a long way to help resolve whatever situation may arise.
Thanks, Augusta. That's really good advice. Sammy, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I would encourage also to Google like mental health first aider, for examples, on internet. There are lots of resources and support group charity providing information or some kind of like mini course online as well, or sometimes your university might provide that for you to educate yourself how you can be a constructive helping hand, a listening ear to somebody who may be experiencing distress as well. So find those informations and see like how you, it's a skill that you want to explore and learn, and maybe you can put it to use not just within the campus, maybe somewhere like on the street as well.
Thanks, Sammy. I think in a similar question again, and Dom, perhaps I can come to you first on this one. What advice would you give to help identify whether a friend is struggling without necessarily feeling comfortable to ask them if they're struggling? What advice do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, when we think about what makes for good mental health, we essentially want people to be feeling and functioning well. I mean, that sort of summarizes it very briefly. So if you notice that they are not doing the things they should be, the things they usually do, the things they enjoy doing, they're isolating themselves, their behaviors become erratic, maybe they are drinking or using drugs and stuff to sort of self-medicate or kind of escape from what is going on. If those sorts of unhealthy coping strategies, all of those seem to be taking up much more of their time and they're basically not feeling and functioning well, that would be a good indicator that they need help, whether or not they have recognized it, of course. And that is fine, I think, at that point to say, you know, I'm a bit worried about you. How are you doing? And just try and have a very open, non-confrontational discussion, and try not to have that discussion if they're currently under the influence of alcohol or drugs or whatever, when they are going to find it harder to have maybe a reasonable conversation. So pick a good time when they're feeling relaxed and comfortable and, you know, you've got a good trust, and then ask gentle, open questions. The key thing here is just to be compassionate. We don't know what other people are going through. Let's not make assumptions.
Thanks, Dom. That's really helpful. And I think it kind of goes back to what Sammy was saying about developing that awareness of, you know, what might kind of someone who is struggling with their mental health, what might that look like in terms of behavior? And then obviously creating that network and that safe space to then perhaps say, are you okay? You know, are you okay? Can I support you in any way? These are the services that are available to you. I think that's really important. Thank you. Sammy, perhaps I can ask you a question about kind of support services for students who are dealing with demands of workload and kind of stress around exams. Is there anything at the university for students to access in that space?
Yes, university, many of them would have academic skill center, maybe under the library or different unit to help you to develop your skills, be it about managing exams, managing the way how you write essay, dissertations, and some of the maths and other language skills. So the great thing about doing modules at universities, you may well receive the information with good details about your exams and assignment at the start of the semester, if not even before the start of the semester. It really helps you to plan ahead, to think that you know what will be the due date, what was the things that will encompass that particular assignment. So you can put it actually on your diary so that you can manage that workflow ahead of time in a few months' time to come. So which is very important skill for you to pre-plan about it, an extremely useful tactic for you to basically even out the stress or potential stress about it. The other thing is a lot of time now, modules nowadays not just based on one single assessment. There could be multi-point assessment. There could be other assessment that they are not contributing to your mark, but for you to practice, to get in feedback as well. So the whole design behind it is not to create one single point of assessment, to lessen the stress, to even out so that you can have time to develop your learning and look at different aspects of your particular subject area as well. So there are a lot of work behind in the last 10, 15 years to look into how we can create a more balanced approach in assessment to reflect your learning. Plan ahead is the best advice. Take a look at the start of the semester, make use of your calendars or online diary to point in some check-in time to remind yourself, need to check point that, oh, it is time to start preparation on here and there. And by the time of the due date, actually you will feel more grounded.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you, Sammy. I think as well, some universities make clear the kind of the format of assessments before you've chosen modules as well. So if, for example, there's been quite a few questions about exam stress, if, you know, exams are not for you, if you perform better with coursework or essay-based subjects, there are options to choose modules that kind of are exam based or are coursework based as well. So I think, you know, doing that research and, as you say, kind of preparing as far in advance, it also goes as far back as selecting modules that will benefit you the most in terms of your kind of ability to deal with the demands of that or perform to the best of your abilities as well. So yeah, really interesting comments there, Sammy. Thank you. And I think we have time probably for one or two more questions. Augusta, you spoke about kind of moving away from home, and we've had quite a few questions about what that's like and the experiences for students and support there. So would you be able to speak a little bit more about the support available for students who do live outside and beyond home?
So I'm guessing we might have some international students in the room, or students who would be moving away from their cities or their small towns or villages, going to university. And there's a lot of anxiety around, you know, moving away from home, moving into a new place, and what it's going to be like. In terms of the support that's available, there's obvious the name may differ with different universities, but at UWI Bristol, one of the things we have is our global support team, and we have global bodies. So going back to that conversation about peer support, students who are able to check in on other students who they're aware of that have moved away from home. We also have the immigration team. So these members of staff are able to support students who have come from long distances into the UK, or those who are planning travels the other way around. I think a good source of support is the Students' Union. I cannot stress it enough. I think a lot of students may believe that the Students' Union is only for events and activities, hosting for sport clubs and societies, but there is so much more than that within that space. So going into the student union, speaking to the advisors in there, speaking to your student representatives in there is one of the ways that you can be able to connect with other people within your space, or from your country, or from your city. And like I said earlier, if there is something that you're interested in and that's not available, you can create it. And it's just about speaking to someone within that space.
Thanks, Augusta. That was a really, really interesting reflection. Thank you. And I'm sure a lot of people here found that very helpful. I know, you know, moving away from home was a scary experience, but again, the university's there to support you. It's not the case that you will move away from home and just be kind of left by yourself. There's so many people around you, and at the end of the day, there's so many other students in the same boat. So, you know, at university, everyone kind of goes together because of that. So
Can I just comment on one thing? It just came to mind now. I know that when students move into university accommodation or private accommodation in their new university cities, some students may not be able to travel back home for bank holidays or university Christmas closures, and that's okay. We usually have student support services, members of staff who are able to support students during closure dates. So if that's ever going to be your situation, knowing that there would be people who would be there to support you during that time.
yeah, really, really important. Thank you. I'm conscious of time, so I think that's probably the last question that we've got. But I just wanted to thank all of our speakers and panelists. Thanks for giving up your time and for giving your insights to what is a really important topic. So thank you very much for that. And I think just some takeaways. You know, not overwhelming yourself or pressurizing yourself at the start of university, taking time to try new things and kind of really learn from the university experience is really important. Understanding that the university is there to support you. There's a variety of ways in which you can access support, and also just enjoying it. University is such a great experience, and there's a lot going on and a lot that universities have to offer. So do get involved, do try new things, and focus on the excitement, as Dom mentioned at the start. So thank you all for joining. Hope you all found it useful. Heather, am I handing back to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to echo what you said, actually, Miles, what a wonderful session. I think it was perfect timing, and very, very relevant considering the week and the discussions that we've previously had. I'd like to thank the panelists, myself, for giving up your time, your expertise. It's completely acknowledged and recognised and needed, and so thank you. And to everybody here who has joined the session, there's been loads of you, loads of questions in the chat. I really do hope that the information that we've given you today has helped put any anxieties or worries to rest. And if you do need to come back to this session, it will be available on demand and it will be emailed to you as well. And so that's really my cue to wrap up the session. Thank everybody once again, and really just wave us out of National University Week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.